Before we start our podcast, we'd like to thank to the Sports Lawyer MasterClass who are sponsoring our podcast for this season. The Sports Lawyer MasterClass is a one domain where you can go and learn about the knowledge and the practical aspects of the sports law. Where not only you get the opportunity to get the knowledge for labor law, mergers and acquisition, human rights, sports management, which are connected to the sports law. Apart from that, you will get the more of the how you need to do the networking, how you need to soft mail to the people who are working in the sports legal industry, how you need to draft the contracts. So please go and check that out. Hello everyone, welcome to the Sports Law Stage podcast. My name is Tushar Katheria. I'll be the host for today's episode. In today's episode, we have our guest Rustam Sethna, who is currently working with the Mills Reeves in their Manchester office. He graduated and completed his undergrad from University of Warwick. After that, he completed his LPC from BPP Law School. After completed his PG Diploma in law, he qualified as an advocate in India, where he worked for AZB Partners in their Mumbai office. After working for 3 years, he went to Spain, where he completed his LLM in international sports law from ISDE Madrid. Rustam is one of the few people who have an experience in working not only in India as well as he is working in the UK. So, without wasting any time, let's head on to our podcast in 3, 2, 1. So, how are you, Rustam?
Very well. Thank you, Tushar. Thanks for having me.
So it's a privilege for us to having you on board for this podcast. So we will start with the first question. So, when you realize that you want to become a sports lawyer, so how your journey started from being a student in a school, and then you become a sports lawyer in and working in UK.
Um, yeah, I'll answer that the best I can. The journey has been sort of quite a long one, but I think it started when I was at university, when I was a law student, and like most students, I think I was just very intrigued by it and curious about what sports law actually was. I wasn't actually aware of what it entailed. But you as a sports fan, you read a lot about um, things like transfers, doping cases, and so on, and you realize that there is an interplay between law and sport, and it just seemed like a attractive career prospect at the time. Um, there was I remember it was around 2010 when London was gearing up to host the Olympics in 2012, and there was lots of sort of investment going in there, and you just sort of start viewing everything through a commercial legal context. Um, and 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 I guess that's what sort of piqued my interest. I guess another thing around that time in 2012 was actually the whole Lance Armstrong doping case that got me really fascinated with the field of anti-doping, and the realization that there actually are lawyers that are involved with these kind of procedures, and I was quite fascinated by it. So that's how it all began. But those were just the seeds, I guess. Uh, I always had this desire to act and goal, if you will, to work in sports law, but I never really sort of understood really what it took, especially fresh out of college. And many lawyers that I spoke to gave me advice, which I would definitely pass on, which is be focus on qualifying as a lawyer first, whatever that is. Get experience, and a lot of that experience is transferable over into into sports if you do decide to make the switch. And so that's what I did. After admittedly trying to get a sports law job fresh out of college, I didn't. Um, um, but but I eventually went. I studied in the UK, so I went back to India, qualified over there, and started working as an associate at AZB, um, which is a full service law firm in India. Um, and my job there was totally unrelated to sports. I worked there for 3 years. I worked in as an associate on their general corporate team, doing things like M&A, um, other corporate commercial things. Um, but I think after 3 years, I sort of it dawned upon me that if I'm going to be working this hard and spending many hours a day in front of my computer screen, it has to be something that I'm passionate about and something that I love. And I knew that was sport. And so I decided to sort of take the plunge and apply for the ISDE Masters program, which I attended in 2007 in 2018. Um, so I think ISDE was that decisive step that I took to sort of demonstrate not only to myself but to others that this is a path that I want to pursue. And so at ISDE it was a good overall good experience, interesting experience, I would say. I had the chance at the end of the program, because that's how it's structured, to intern at the offices of a very well-known CASA arbitrator called Mr. Massimo Coccia, at his offices in Rome, in Italy, which is a brilliant experience. And I worked there for a couple of months, and after that, I sort of it became clear to me that working in Italy, as much as I love that country, would be difficult for various reasons: language barrier, work permit, so on. Not being an Italian qualified lawyer, and so I had to start looking elsewhere for jobs, and it was tough. It was very tough. There weren't many jobs out there. There aren't many at the moment either. That's just the nature of our industry. Um, but I did apply for a paralegal position at Mills and Reeves, which I started in July 2019. I worked there for 6 months. Um, whilst I was there, I mean, the idea was that I would work there for 6 months. If they were happy with me, then they would offer me a full-time position. And that happened at the end of it. And I finished my 6 months paralegal ship, and in January I had to go back to India to get my visa to come back to start my associate position. And in the midst of all of that, COVID hit, and I was stuck in India. My passport was stuck at the visa office, and I was actually quite scared about whether that I would have that position. But the firm were thankfully really good about it and didn't take it away from me. They only pushed it back a couple of times, and I eventually started as an associate at Mills Reeves on the sports team in September 2020. And yeah, I've been basically since then. It's been a brilliant experience. I've been doing essentially regulatory and disputes in sports, and pretty much, I think I would say I work exclusively in sports, which is a dream, and it's a great team, lots to learn, and yeah, I think in a nutshell, that is my sports law journey.
Yeah, good to hear about that. So, how was your law school journey study? You went to the University of Warwick, where you completed your undergrad, and then you completed your legal practice course from BPP Law School. How was that experience? Because there are not many Indian lawyers who pursue this kind of courses right now. So, how was your experience?
No, it was probably among the best years of my life. And I think the idea was, I left India at a fairly young age.
Mm.
It was a few weeks before my 18th birthday, I remember. And the idea was definitely to try and, you know, get a job in the UK, qualify over here, and stay the course over here. Unfortunately, things always don't always work out as you'd like them to, and so I did finish my law degree. I did the LPC, which is the final stage before you actually start working as a trainee. But I admittedly didn't get a training contract for whatever reason. Either I was not good enough at the time, or I there were um, issues with getting a work visa. As most Indians would know, in the UK, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And the student visa didn't give us much time to search for a job. So as soon as your course is over, you're out. So yeah, I had to come back to India. I would like to have sort of stayed on, but eventually I ended up here quite a few years later. But overall, I would say it was a good academic and non-academic experience, and has sort of held me in good stead for the
So,
future.
yeah. So after you completed your undergrad and your LPC, you went to AZB Partners in the Mumbai office, where you worked there I think for 3 years. You worked for them. So how was your experience in AZB, and in which department you were working at that time?
So I was working at the in the general corporate team.
All
So
right. Huh.
doing providing general corporate, commercial, regulatory advice. Working on mergers and acquisitions and private
Mhm.
equity transactions and uh, uh, bond issuances and that kind of stuff. Um, I also did do a very niche area of work in aviation and aviation finance,
Mhm.
but I've forgotten all of that stuff now. Um, and it was a great experience. It was hard work. I haven't had to work like that since then, but it was really hard work. But I think it really equipped me with some skills that are standing me in good stead now. So sorry. And I mean, looking back, I at the time I felt as though I was going nowhere and in a rut, because I was just working a lot and not necessarily finding what I was passionate about. Although the work was great and I was learning a lot and I was definitely growing a lot, because there's lots of responsibility, high profile work, etc., etc. Um, but it didn't appeal to me. It did not speak to me. It wasn't something I was passionate about. And like I said earlier, it wasn't something that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And I'm happy that I came upon that realization in the early part of my career, and that allowed me to sort of go out there and seek um, for something else that I was more passionate about. And I feel very lucky to have found that in sport.
Yeah, nice. So, you once you so at what time you went to the Madrid? Because you went there and you completed your masters in international sports law, and you had a really good experience there. So how was the experience, as well as, and when you went to the ISDE in Madrid?
I went in January 2018. So
Hmm.
exactly at this time of the year, 4 years
Hmm.
ago, pretty much to the date, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I can't believe it's been that long. It feels like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
and it still feels like I'm a very early entrant into the sports law industry. But now that I say that it's been 4 years, that's insane. But yeah, the experience on the whole, like I said, was an interesting experience. There was a lot to learn, in terms of interaction with people that come and lecture. Some of whom were, most of whom were very, sort of reputed and high profile in the industry, and that's when you actually, you know, have the opportunity to speak to them, learn from them, and ask questions without being afraid to ask in a safe space that would really allow you to learn and understand, um, what the subject is about. Um, I I can't sort of emphasize, how important it is to also view your colleagues as part of the network that you come across when you're at ISDE, and some of whom I'm still in touch with today. Many of whom I made very good friends with from all over the world. I think our class was 43 to something like that people, and we had people from 20 something different countries from all over the world. Countries like Ecuador, Colombia, Uruguay, Argentina, countries that you only dream of visiting. And so it was a really good experience to be in that sort of multicultural environment where everyone wants to learn and is passionate about their subject, which I can't really say for other areas of law. I'm not sure if you went for, like I could be wrong, but if you went for a corporate law LLM, I'm not sure everyone would be as passionate about learning and so so that was really nice about it. Um, the ISDE obviously is unique because it offers a guaranteed internship at the end of
Yeah.
the program. And whilst I was very happy with the internship that eventually I managed to secure, I mean that process was a bit stressful, um, and I think for most people. But overall, I think it, at the end of the day, it definitely was was a factor. It was one of the factors that sort of set me apart in trying to get the job that I have today. Um, my two bosses, are associated with that program. As another member of my team, Tiran, who was from that program in 2014, I think, or 13. And so, the industry does recognize it. And so from that perspective, I thought that, this is again going back to the networking aspect of it. The network that you have from ISDE is very useful.
So before applying to the ISDE, did you shortlisted any other university or colleges where you want to pursue this kind of sports law courses?
Yeah, I mean, I did my research, but I only actually applied to ISDE.
Mm-hmm.
So I obviously did my research, and I figured I learned that there was a FIFA Masters.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I think the reason I didn't apply to the FIFA Masters, by the time I started the whole process, I'd missed the deadline because they start in September each year, while
Yeah.
these starts in Jan each year. So I think I'd missed the boat, and then I'd have to wait another year. So I didn't apply. I didn't apply for the FIFA Masters, but that's also seemed like a really good course. Mainly, it's more multidisciplinary because you not only do you do law, but you do a bit of humanities and which I personally really like, and the management side of thing as well. Um, so I didn't apply there. Sometimes I wonder if I should have applied there. I guess things eventually worked out. Um, but no, I also knew of the other. So there's two programs that ISDE offer, one in Madrid and one in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Again, I did my research and sort of ruled out Barcelona and stuck to Madrid, because I guess part of the reason I chose ISDE Madrid was because it was purely law focused, and I guess an argument for ISDE Madrid over the FIFA Masters is that if you want to do just the sports law, then you have more of a focus at ISDE, arguably. Um, so so yeah, I knew about the FIFA Masters, the other ISDE course. I What else did I apply to? I didn't apply to anywhere else, but there was one in Geneva, that university, was it Geneva? Sorry, Zurich,
Yeah.
uh, the LLM at the University of Zurich.
Mm.
Um, and at the time there was talk of this master's starting in Rome,
Mm.
identical to ISDE. And I would have applied for it, but I think by the time that application needed to be submitted, that program was not being offered anymore. So yeah, ISDE was eventually the only one I applied to.
Oh, all right. So you completed your masters at that time, and then you had a transition to in UK, where right now you're working in the Mills and Reeves. How was the transition happen? How that happened? Because we know because I'm very keen interest about this transition thing from Indian qualified lawyer to becoming an associate as a solicitor in UK. So how things that happen?
Yeah, I mean, so one thing to clarify first is I'm still not a your English qualified solicitor in the UK.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm My job description is I'm an Indian qualified associate or foreign
Okay.
qualified associate over here.
Mm.
But nonetheless, the transition was in some senses easy, some senses difficult. I think getting the job was the challenge for me.
Mm.
Getting that first foot in through the paralegal role, that was the challenge. There was very few sports law jobs out there at the
Mm.
time that I was applying, and I always got the feeling that I would get really far with a really exciting opportunity, and then we would talk about things like work permits, which obviously is
Mm.
essential, and those kind of opportunities just, frankly speaking, don't exist for Indian passport holders, or rather, it is very challenging. It is very difficult. Um, so I'd almost sort of given up. At, this was around early 2019. Um, but something in me said that I need to keep pushing and persisting until I found it, because I could feel for the first time that I was invested in what I was doing, that I had worked hard, and that I knew what I was talking about to be able to impress an employer. And so I gave myself the first half of 2019 to find a job. Um, After which I said, okay, the European UK dream will have to end, because you
Mm.
can't go around searching for jobs endlessly. Eventually, you need to. I thought that, okay, I would have to come back, to India, and figure out something there, whether in sports or otherwise. Um, but in those 6 months, I threw everything at it. So I did everything I could. Um, I had given myself, like I said, 6 months. I had so much money saved up from my AZB days as well in my account.
Mm.
And I said that until I get through this money, I said this is going to last me until probably June or July, and just be out there in the UK, and I can't in Europe generally. And I can't emphasize this enough, that actually being on the ground makes such a difference in terms of being able to arrange meetings. That's obviously changed now, but at least at that time, I think that's what made all the difference. I didn't even for about so thank, thankfully I had some I was able to go back to my internship in Rome and work a few months there. But apart from that, I literally spent my time focusing on trying to get a job. Um, whilst I was doing that, to save money on rent, I volunteered with a very nice Spanish family in Spain. and I lived with them, basically looking after their kids in the day. There were three boys, aged at that time 9, twins of 9 and one 13-year-old. And that was obviously completely unrelated to sports law, completely
Yeah.
unrelated to law. Um, but it taught me so much as well about, humility and doing jobs that, you didn't see yourself doing, but this was all towards the eventual aim. So I spent, I think about 2.5 months maybe doing this. Um, and it was during this period that I, managed to get an interview with Mills and Reeves, got that interview, got the paralegalship, and started my job. Once that job started, um, I think the transition, your question, how was the transition? I guess the transition was exciting because in a way it felt like a complete career change for me.
Yeah.
What I'm doing now is totally unrelated to what I have known or what I had done at in Bombay at AZB,
Mhm.
and I guess it's yeah, it felt like a career change because I hadn't a day of disputes experience in my life before.
Mhm.
And here I am doing mainly sports related disputes,
Mhm.
regulatory work, which is not what I was used to, but something that I, was very enthusiastic and still am very enthusiastic about. So in that sense, that was a bit of a transition, but also you 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 I guess you will always, if you're starting in a new firm, there will always
Mhm.
be things about that firm that you have to adjust to, whether
Mhm.
it's systems, people, the way you work, etc. But ultimately, AZB taught me a lot about what it's like to work in a law firm. How
Mhm.
you interact in a professional environment, etc. And in that sense, the transition was made quite easy.
I think the two words which I can totally relate with you: persistence and hard work. The sheer hard work that you showed doing some odd jobs at that time, I think it's completely inspiring for all the students who want to make their career, especially in overseas, in whether they want to make their career in US or in UK and in Australia also. So yeah, I think that's really good that you shared this personal story about how you doing such kind of work while you were searching for the legal position in UK. So thank you for telling this story. Especially, I think people will really get inspired from you. Yeah. So after
It's just
that,
what you have to do. You gotta grind it out until you get to the goal. That is
y-
basically the
yeah,
message.
I can see, I can clearly feel the emotion that you were talking about, that journey, that transition in that. I can feel that because I'm sitting right now in Kanpur, but still, yeah, yeah. So let's move on to the next question. So you already work in so many firms right now. You have so much experience right now in the sports industry right now. So what are the books and materials that you can recommend right now, and what are the other things that students needs to look to get updated themselves, like referring any website, podcasts,
Uh,
newsletters?
yeah, it's a good question because I so one of the things that drove my passion for sports law was law in sport. I
Mhm.
discovered I stumbled upon it in 2000 and when was it? Either 2011 or
Yeah,
2012.
yeah, it started by Sean Cottrell at that time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I used to regularly read their stuff and articles, and till today I would highly recommend it, because there's right now it's grown into such a massive database and
Mhm.
resource, where you have stuff on everything, and and not just articles as well. I think I mean they have a podcast.
Yeah.
um they they run webinars, conferences, etc. So I would highly recommend Law and Sport as a resource. Um, I would also say there are plenty of other books. As a practitioner, as a lawyer on a daily basis, there are books that we refer to quite regularly. Um, but apart from the books, I would say before you get to any um, academic material, as a lawyer, it's very important. And this was actually advice given to um, my cohort of junior lawyers when we started at AZB
Mhm.
by Zia Mody, who is the founding partner, and she had said that it's the most important thing is that you just know the law and your bare
Mhm.
acts. And she had told us how she would read just the bare acts and get to
Mhm.
grips with the law. And I fully agree with that advice in the context of sport as well. There are some regulations which you encounter on a daily basis. For example, the FIFA RSTP, regulations on the status and transfer of players. Um, there's no substitute to actually reading the actual RSTP.
Mhm.
Um, the FIFA have come out with a commentary recently, which is
Mhm.
very detailed, and that answers a lot of questions about any ambiguities in the RSTP itself. So I would encourage people to read that commentary as well. Another example is the WADA code, the World Anti-Doping Agency code. Again, very technical area of law, and unless you fully read the code, you're never going to understand it. So really get to grips with the law, the regulations. But I mean, if you're asking for books and materials, I think there was one book that really broke it down really well for me. I think it was just called Sports Law by Professor Mark James. It's not a very fat book either. It's a thinnish book, and it sort of broke things up it segmented things quite well. So I just before I went to ISDE, I read most of that book. I can't say I've read all of it, but everything that I've read was very helpful. Um, there are books released by the Asser Institute.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the guys that do the International Sports Law Journal, also very good. In
Mhm.
particular, there's one on the jurisprudence of the FIFA Dispute Resolution Chamber,
Mhm.
which is very comprehensive, and something I refer to pretty regularly
Mhm.
with my work. Um, there's the CAS code commentary. Again, you first need to read the CAS code and understand how it works and what you need to do to bring a case at the CAS.
Mhm.
Um, but the commentary is very useful because it clarifies a lot of things that aren't in the code. And then finally, what is considered to be the Bible of sports law is a big fat book called Sports Law and Practice by Adam Lewis and Jonathan Taylor QC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it, it's got the answer to pretty much everything so
Yeah.
far. Everything that I've searched for has an answer in that book. So it's a very useful resource as well.
Yeah, so one of my
That
favorite
answers
book
it.
is Adam Lewis books, which I'm right now for referring any writing any article or books. It's a really good book, and somehow I got I think in Diwali sale at just merely I got the ebook at I think it's 70 rupees only. It's a stealer deal at that
Wow.
time. Yeah, I get it just 70 rupees.
70
Yeah,
rupees is less than a pound.
yeah. So
You already
yeah,
got the full book.
yeah, I got the ebook right now and just referring it anytime I want it. So yeah, there's a one more book which I'm reading right now, written by Anita M. Mooman, Linda Sharp. It's called Sports Law Managerial Approach. I have that book. It's a really good book. It's given really new aspects, as well as this. It is a one more book written by Advanced Introduction to Global Sports Law, written by Professor Stephen F. Ross. He's the faculty in charge, I think, in Penn State University. So it's a really good
Okay.
with these
So
two books.
you know more than me then. You should be recommending all these books to everyone.
Basically created a basic level, intermediate level, and advanced level. So the Anytime's movement book is it's an advanced level book. So first we need to make a strong foundation. For that, I think Simon Gardner's book is really good to make a great foundation. Apart from that, this is
Yeah.
Lex Sportiva written by Robert Sykman.
So Mark James's book that I referred to, I
Yeah,
think it's just called Sports Law. Is it- no, I don't have it at the back there, but I mean it's a great book. Uh,
yeah.
it's very good to get your basics down.
Hmm.
I recommend that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really important to make a strong foundation, especially in this, which is a very niche area. For sports law is very niche right now. I know it's booming, but yeah, it's
oh,
still a niche.
it will always be niche, I think.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I agree. You need to know what you're talking about, and reading is the best way.
Yeah. So yeah.
I guess
So
the CAS website is a good resource if you know what you're
yeah.
looking for. You just want
Hmm.
to read CAS decisions because
Hmm.
it's great to just know what the position of certain points of law are, which is developed
Hmm.
through CAS jurisprudence. So I
Hmm.
would, at the risk of sounding like a sports law geek, I
Hmm.
would suggest that CAS decisions are sometimes worth reading, even if just
Hmm.
for your own knowledge.
Hmm. Yeah. So my next follow-up question would be I think there are less opportunities right now for students, especially the pandemic happened. But you see, I want to know your perspective. What are the things that you can recommend to law students or students who want to work in this sports industry? So what are the things that you can recommend them? What are the things that they can do in their law school? What are the stuff? What are the activities? Or internships are one of the great thing that you can get experience, especially if you want to practice a sports law, because
Yeah,
a person like me who realized that I want to pursue sports law in the fifth year, which come to when my law school get ended, and I pursued that. So it take me 2 years to get the basics right now, and then coming with the reading all the study materials. After that, looking for the internships now. Right now, it's really tough for students. So what are the things that you want to recommend during the law school?
I wouldn't. I'll repeat what I said earlier. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't. I wouldn't get too stressed about wanting to do sports law straight out of university or
Mm-hmm.
college or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
wherever it is you get your law degree. Um, I I would emphasize and recommend focusing on actually qualifying as a lawyer first. So in India, that would mean finishing your degree,
Mm-hmm.
getting yourself registered at your state bar association, giving AIBE, all that stuff. Get that out of the way and start working as a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
That is honestly the first step to becoming a sports lawyer. You can't be a sports lawyer if you're not a lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you can get a job in sports law at that early stage, then that's great. Um, but if you don't, it doesn't mean that you can never eventually get one.
Mm-hmm.
And and what I would recommend doing to get there would basically think about I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you have to do a master's. They are becoming very common these days, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's your golden ticket to a job in the sports law. But what I would say is that whatever it is you do, make sure you're adding some value. There's a lot out there today. How should I say it? There's a lot of content out there today, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes it's very easy for your blog or your article, etc., to just get lost in a minefield.
Mm-hmm.
And so try and bring a different angle to things. Um, if you can, first of all, be well informed about what's going on. If you have an opinion, most definitely write about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say, platforms like Law in Sport that have such big readerships and
Mm-hmm.
followings are great for that reason, but
Mm-hmm.
also because they are very supportive and encouraging of young lawyers who are enthusiastic and who want to write. I remember when I wrote my first article, they were very supportive. They had comments, detailed comments on how I should adapt it or change it, and I went through a proper editorial process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to that eventually ensured that the article was up to their standards to be published. So do things that you think will add value. Um, and also do things that will set you apart. And what I mean by that is not doing a master's will not set you apart in that sense. Doing a master's sometimes, example at my master's, you could easily have attended your classes, not really participated, done your work, passed, no problem. Um, but what else can you do to demonstrate that this is something that you actually want to be doing for the rest of your life, right? And I think that is a challenge, and that is a trap that many people fall into, because today I speak to lots of people. People contact me very often about advice on getting into sports law. Should I do a master? Should I not? What just opinions, etc., etc. Uh, and and the first thing I will say is that you need to be a sure of why you're doing this. B, understand what it is you are getting yourself into. And third, you can't just say that it's an area that you're passionate about or an area that you're interested. That unfortunately just doesn't work today. It might have worked, a few decades ago when there were only a handful of sports lawyers. But today, because it's so competitive, there is no reason why you should get a job just because you're interested or just because you're passionate. How can you demonstrate that interest? What have you done, right? Um, and 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 that can be through you know experiences that are not related to sports law at all. Like I said, just being a good lawyer and having solid law firm or lawyer advocate experience. But it could also mean having done things like a master's, like short courses online. There are quite a few of them, I think, now. Um, like writing articles, attending conferences, getting yourself out there, and actually, it's a very uncomfortable experience. I've done it, and I'm still not fully comfortable with going into a room and not knowing anyone there. But you have to put yourself out there and be outside your comfort zone, and just every time you feel like this is not something that you feel equipped to do, think of it as an exercise in growth. In that, if you do it, you will come out feeling like you have learned something, and you will come out feeling like you've taken away something from that experience, whether it's a conversation with someone, whether it's a contact that you made, that you potentially a relationship that you can build for the future, uh, a lead that you got that you can follow up and perhaps arrange a coffee or drink with someone. you know um, those are the kind of things that I would recommend people should do, rather than single-mindedly being obsessed with sports law. Because to be honest, there aren't many jobs out there. Yourself, there are more people who want the jobs than there are people who can offer the jobs. There's a huge demand and supply problem, and I'm noticing this in India more than other places. Every student, every young lawyer is wanting to get into sports law, and it's almost becoming like a mainstream choice. But unfortunately, it's not a mainstream career option. There aren't those many jobs in sport at the moment, uh, and so you need to do things that will set you apart. And I think it will only get more and more competitive, unfortunately. But it is an issue that needs to be solved and addressed. And I hopefully I can do my bit um, to address that with an interesting initiative that I'm working on right now, which I am almost ready to launch. So you will hear about that more in due course.
Yeah. So I think there's a one conference that I came to know about you, which is started by Sean Cottrell in 2020, how to become a sports lawyer. So you were in that conference, and that time only, I think 1 week later we had a talk about this, because I also wanted to pursue this sports law as a career, and you did advise me, you give me your golden wisdom words to me at that time, and it's really it's opened the more opportunity, because uh you want to make a difference in the market right now. It I agree that there are less jobs right now. There's a huge demand supply in the market, but I think in next decade, I think jobs will become, new leagues are coming right now. I think more lawyers will be needed. I'm very optimistic right now in this thing.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, that goes without saying. The more investment that
Mm,
there is in sport, that'll drive the need for sports lawyers directly or
mhm,
indirectly. Um, and I totally agree. But at this moment,
mm,
the way things are going, despite the growth in the sports industry, and particularly in India, let's talk about India for a second here. Despite
mm,
the growth in India of the sports industry, I think um, the demand far outstrips the
mm.
supply of jobs in sports law. I
Yeah.
can't comment on the number of jobs there are out there with sports management and things like that. I'm not
Mhm,
saying those are easier to get,
mhm,
but I know that the number of sports law firms, for example, that there
mm.
are very few in India. So that
Six,
the
seven law
options
firms
are
right now in India.
limited.
Yeah, only six,
Sorry.
seven law firms are. There are only six, seven law firms in India who are practicing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sports law right now.
Exactly. And a lot of the work in India at the moment, um, from what I understand, Ian,
Hmm.
is the transactional commercial work, and
Hmm.
the dispute side of it is not as active as
Hmm.
perhaps the UK is. Um, so again, those are areas of sport. That's one thing about sports law that you need to be clear about. What are you interested on the commercial transaction side of
Hmm.
it, or are you interested
Hmm.
on the regulatory dispute side of it?
Hmm.
Because that might be an answer to whether you will, there is a market for you as a job seeker in India.
Hmm. Yeah. So, my next question would be, you see, in this pandemic, yeah, there are the laws, lifestyles get changes. How pandemic did impacted your lifestyle right now?
My lifestyle personally, or generally, uh,
Yeah, especially yours. How was your lifestyle get affected in this pandemic? Because you already told me about that the your passport got stuck in India at the time when the
yeah,
COVID
I mean,
lockdown happened.
yeah, the first what 6 8 months of the pandemic, I was in a limbo phase. I actually
Mm-hmm.
used that time to help out Sean at LawInSport
Mm-hmm.
with a conference that he was organizing then. So I did manage to keep myself busy, but I started my job very much in the middle of the pandemic in September 2020, and since then, we haven't gone back to a full-fledged 5 days a week uh, in the office. And to be honest, I'm completely fine with that. I think most people are very happy to be working part from home and part in the office
Mm,
now. I think what the pandemic has taught everyone, not just me, is adaptability,
mm,
resilience, adaptability in the sense that you adapt to the way you work, you adapt to
mm,
the way you do business, as in the way you meet clients. It's clear that you don't now need to be sitting across a table, and it could very well be on Zoom like we are right now. So I guess that's been a revelation. It was a revelation many months ago. I think it's become the norm now.
yeah.
But it's also it's a tricky situation though, working during COVID, because sometimes when you're working at home, the boundaries between
Mm,
your home and uh, your personal life and your work life are
mm,
non-existent. Literally from your bed to your desk
mm,
to your bed. It's sometimes you can sort of fall into that trap. You don't
mm,
necessarily have to the whole time, but you just do it anyway because you're there and you're available, and you know it's not like you're in an office, which is where you only work. So I think these are a few differences and takeaways from working during COVID, but we just gotta have to live with it. So
So, the last question would be, you see right now there are many during the pandemic, various streams get evolved, like chess got evolved, online olympiad, chess olympiad happened, which India and Russia become the joint winner at that time. And then esports is now become a booming market right now. And how you see the next decade would be, especially for esports?
yeah, I think esports definitely looks like the future, right? Uh, I'm not much of a gamer, so
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I will have to learn. But there's a lot that the esports industry over the years will need to do to formalize itself, and as it there's a lot from sport that it doesn't need to learn from. you know s- things like opaque and non-transparent and uh, not the most diverse structures.
Mm,
Um, but there's a lot like things like a lot of things, issues like safeguarding, for example,
yeah.
because esports is a demographic of I don't know, teen to mid 20s is where the population is concentrated with esports, and there's a huge safeguarding angle there of having kids at their computers for many hours a day, and a welfare angle as well. So esports developers, games, etc., will have to be thinking about that those aspects. From the competitive aspect, there's what they call e-doping nowadays,
Yeah.
and how teams and esports competitions can seek to enforce a more general anti-doping regime across
Mm,
esports.
yeah.
Is interesting. It will be interesting, like they do with the WADA code right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but apart from that, I definitely see the industry, um, you know, booming in the next. It already is in a sense. And before the pandemic, you had esports venues that were packed to the brims,
Yeah.
for these events. I always wondered what the fuss was about, but hopefully one day
Mm.
I have the opportunity to attend one myself and find out for myself.
Yeah, definitely. You should experience. It's a very totally different kind of experience, especially in esports. And yeah, PUBG Mobile Global Championship is going to be happen, and one team from India went godlike will be playing the grand finals in there. So I hope to the best to that team. I hope they perform really
Yeah.
well, because in 2020 Orange Rock Esports, they secured a second rank in that, I think, PUBG Mobile World Series in the Eastern Hemisphere. So there are two different tournaments happen. In Western Hemisphere there are different tournament, and Eastern Hemisphere there are different
Right.
tournament, because there are so many competitive teams right now in esports, and it's an
Mm.
unregulated market for now. So we need to see how it will get regulated in the near future. There are so many things which are coming up right now. There's a 40 line documentary things which are doing by the various esports organization and player. It's happened in these in the Battleground Mobile India series, which happened last week only. So there are two teams which get disbanded from playing that tournament. So yeah, things are coming up. I think we it will get evolved in next 10 years. I think, I hope it become beneficial for the organization, for the government as well, and also for the fans and the young bloods coming right now,
Yeah,
because there's a
definitely.
very lack of academy right now. Esports academy are not right now in India. However, in UK, US, Indonesia, Malaysia, they already had that infrastructure for now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so you clearly know a lot more than me again. Uh, so we should reverse roles over here now.
Because I already played I played before BGMI becomes official. I played the PUBG Mobile in 2020 as a professional player. I played it for one tournament, but
Nice.
our team got did not qualified for the third round. So yeah, we didn't play that tournament. It's for the PUBG Mobile Club Open Challenge at that time. So yeah, I already had that kind of experience.
Very
It's a
nice.
very,
Good stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it's a different kind of experience. While I already played a cricket at the very good level, but this is something really different. It's a
Yeah.
complete different environment, and I think it will get really good in the near future. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be all for us. So yeah, thank you so much, Rustam, for coming for this podcast,
My pleasure.
and thank you for
Good to
taking
speak to
your
you.
time out from your busy schedule. You already
Not
had
at
such a
all.
jam-packed schedule for now. So thank you everyone for listening to this podcast till the end. If you really like this episode, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow our channel. You can also check our website where you can see what are the blogs, what are the things that we are doing right now. Also, thank you for the Sports Law Masterclass, who are our prime sponsor for our website. They are truly believe in our vision, what we are working for right now. So yeah, so go and check out the link. I will put the link down in the description box where you can go and check out what is the Sports Law Masterclass. So where you get a one link database where you can learn about this basic of the sports law, what are the ambiguities, what are the area of law which are connected to sports law, mergers and acquisition, labor law, competition law, human rights law, and other laws which are currently right now in the domain of law. So please go and check that out. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. So goodbye everyone.